Welcome to CIO Academy's Thought Leadership Interview Series, #Unplugged, brought to you in partnership with IMDA Pixel. In this edition of #Unplugged series, I'm joined by two esteemed panelists from our industry. Paul Loke, Director, Technology and Chief Information Officer of the Accountant General's Department AGD, and Alex Hoel, Senior Director, Business Development Asia Pacific at Denodo. And together, we'll be talking about how organizations can transform their data management strategy for greater business agility. So Paul, the first question is for you. Can you tell us more about your role and functions at AGD?
So the Accountant General's Department is the Chief Financial Officer for the Singapore Public Service. What this means is that we handle payments and payroll for the Singapore Civil Service. We are probably best known for Vendors@Gov, which is the e-invoicing platform for the Singapore Public Service.
Yes.
And within AGD, I then hold the ambit of technology and transformation. So how do I use technology to solve a business pain point?
Right. There you have to deal with the challenge of data fragmentation. So how do you cope with that?
So we operate a platform called FIA Curve. This is an government internal facing system that provides financial analytics to all of the public service agencies within Singapore.
Right.
Now imagine over the course of time, right, we've had many different finance systems, many different payroll systems. Agencies were developing their own systems over many years.
Yes.
How do I bring all of this together? And this is where the data fragmentation happens. It's not unique to AGD, it's not unique to Singapore government. Many organizations, especially the bigger ones, all have the same challenges where systems were developed in silos, systems were developed over time, systems have evolved. And now trying to make sense of it and bring all of that data into one mega platform.
Right.
For the purposes of analytics, for the purposes of looking at trends, is a very tough challenge.
I'm sure, yeah.
So what are the pain points? So what we started doing was looking at, well, which are the pain points that we wanted to address first? What is the low-hanging fruit that we needed to address?
Right, yeah. Okay. So Alex, maybe this is a perfect time for me to ask you more about what you do at Denodo. And I do believe a lot of it revolves around this concept of data virtualization.
Yes, absolutely. So Denodo actually is a leading expert in the space of data virtualization.
Right.
And data virtualization is actually the probably most advanced technology that is out there for data integration at the moment.
Okay.
What we're seeing in the last maybe 10 years is really a change in the way we generate data. The types of data is getting more and more different. It's streaming data, it's IoT data, it's social media data, in addition to the classic structured data.
Right.
At the same time, the data volumes increase significantly. And then this traditional process of making copies and copies of data is starting not to be that effective anymore, because we produce data actually faster than we can make these copies of the data.
Right.
At the same time, 75% of the data that we store is probably never being used.
Right.
So we make copies of lots of data which are actually not relevant.
Right.
So this is the moment where data virtualization comes in. So data virtualization actually takes a very different approach, because data virtualization leaves the data at the data sources.
Right.
And only at the moment when data is required, it is being delivered to the end consumers. So to your BI tools, to your machine learning tools, to your websites, etc. So in a layman's term, I usually talk about traditional data integration technologies is moving the ocean to get a glass of water.
Yeah.
Whereas with data virtualization, you fetch a glass of water at the moment when you need it.
I really like the analogy you used just now. And maybe you could say something about how that applies to some of the things that Paul just mentioned about, data silos, about data fragmentation. How will that fit in with the solutions that you have at Denodo?
Yeah. So data virtualization actually creates an abstraction layer between your different data storages, your data sources, and your data consumers. So that means that basically your business or your end consumers and your infrastructure can work completely separately.
Okay.
So in the case of AGD, for example, you can modernize your underlying infrastructure. You can move from on-premise to the cloud. You can change your data sources as you want to, as technologies evolve, as requirements evolve. And at the same time, your end consumers are not affected at all. So any investments you have done, for example, into your analytics tools actually stays 100% safe.
Okay, good. So Paul, taking from what Alex just shared, I do believe that there's been several projects going on at AGD.
Yes.
And recently I read that you have embarked on a series of RPA-related projects.
That's right.
It's all about data as well.
Yes.
Do you want to just elaborate more on some of the projects that you're doing?
Sure. So we started off RPA as a simple means to do reconciliation. Right? It's a very simple way to match things. RPA is very good for this, just matching, cutting and pasting jobs.
Right.
But we've evolved to use RPA for three perspectives. One is we wanted staff efficiency. So we wanted to free up staff time to be able to do other things. Two, we started RPA as a means to increase the breadth and depth of some of the work that we do.
Okay.
So in the areas of audits, for example, we wanted to use the robots to allow us to scan massive volumes of data
Right.
and then be able to pick and choose what we wanted to look at.
These are the bots that you have created, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thirdly, what we've done is we've also started using RPA as a way to do data preparation.
Related to this, Alex, are there other use cases that you are aware of and which Denodo has been involved in that you may want to describe to us?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, one example I can share with you is, for example, a customer called Autodesk.
Okay.
Autodesk is in the business of doing design software, 3D design software for in construction, for engineering, etc. And traditionally, Autodesk has sold perpetual licenses. So basically, sell a CD, download the software, give it to the customer, and the customer installs it then on their computers back home or in the office.
Right.
This is a relatively simple business model with relatively little interaction with the customer. You have a sales process, you have sales records, but then you basically do not interact a lot with the customer anymore.
Right.
So to modernize their business model, they actually moved at some stage into an on-demand delivery of their software in the cloud plus a subscription model. And this kind of approach to interact with the customer has changed their business model completely, because suddenly you're getting incredibly deep insights of how is the customer actually using your software.
Right.
You know who is using the software, how long is he using the software, which functions is the end user actually using.
Right.
So you get a myriad of information, and they had a traditional, I would say, structured data infrastructure with SAP, with a data warehouse to capture the traditional information. But with that new environment, with a new on-cloud environment, they needed to capture so much more data. So they introduced actually a data lake to capture all of that.
Right.
Now the challenge they got was, okay, I've got an old business, which I still have to keep because I cannot give up my old customers, and I have a new business, and I need to create a single view on my business. And to bring those two worlds together, they basically introduced Denodo as an integration layer, which allows them then to have on one side a single point of access, which gives them a single view to their analytical tools to see the old business, the new business, and everything together.
Right.
Plus, they can also enforce, for example, security, access control, self-service through that Denodo data virtualization layer.
Okay. So with all this that you've heard so far, what recommendation would you give in terms of building a strong data management strategy for organizations?
Well, I think the first thing you have to look at is what data do you have? What are the pain points you have to address?
Yeah.
Technology projects generally do not fail because the technology is not there. It is that bridge between, Peter Drucker calls it people process technology. Today's big term is ops tech integration. It is the integration between what is a pain point that business is facing and the technology. There are plenty of good technologies out there. You go to any vendor roadshow, right? They will say A, B, C, D. A for AI, B for blockchain, C for cloud, D for data science.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. The famous ABCD.
Right, famous ABCD. But if you don't have a use case for it, what is the point of bringing in all the technology?
Yeah. Right.
So what pain points are you trying to address? Once you have the pain point, then you start to look at whether you have your data sources.
Right.
And this is where then the analytics engines start to come in. This is where then, if your data management strategy is correct, you are able to say, what source of data do I have, and am I able to solve the problem?
Most conversations today, we cannot ignore the fact that we have to take into consideration the black swan, which is COVID, pandemic. I mean, various names have been used to describe the current situation. It's definitely adding another level of complexity in the way we go about doing our work, right? Especially with folks working from home. I would think that even your data management strategy would have to be rethought. And if you have to do that, maybe Alex, what advice would you give?
We're probably still at earlier stages of that crisis.
Right.
At the same time, I mean, we're collecting lots of information. We need lots of data on one side to understand how is the disease evolving. At the same time, also, for example, who are the people most impacted, but also where are resources most needed.
Right.
So at the moment, we're probably running very quickly into a shortage of critically needed resources like protective gear, like ventilators, like other supporting materials.
Right.
And in an environment like that, where things are changing extremely quickly, where you need, at the other side, a lot of data to fight the virus, but you need to take decision almost in real time. Actually, a solution like data virtualization can actually be of incredibly big help, because we can obviously, with data virtualization, bring data together from multiple data sources. We can add data sources at an extremely quick pace, and we can help to take decisions at real time.
Right. We realize that now the emphasis is very much now on the digital workplace, right? And I think earlier on when we talked about it, you did mention that, operational matters are upmost on everybody's minds. What would you say is the shifts now that's happening at AGD as well?
Well, I think the awareness that the situation is changing so rapidly that there is no way for us to predict what's going to happen month to month is causing a lot of mindset shift within every organization, not just AGD.
Right.
Complexity of data, how do we ensure our data is protected? How do we ensure accessibility to this data when we need it? With people working from home, everything from how good their home broadband connection is suddenly becomes an issue. Because you suddenly have people who say, oh, well, I don't have a broadband connection at home, so what do I do? Secondly, I think then with the shifts in the government, and the Singapore government has been going on cloud in a very progressive manner, we start to look at how we then can integrate the on-prem with the cloud, because the data sources are now sitting, what was traditionally all on-prem is now starting to, you see your data silos starting to move, some on cloud, some on-prem. How do you integrate?
And even with the cloud, there's multiple clouds, and then there's hybrid.
That's right. Amazon, AWS, Azure, and Google, right? So you have 3 different clouds. How do you manage that?
Right. Yeah. So gentlemen, thank you very much. It was a very interesting discussion. Definitely there is a need to have a sound data management strategy so that you can achieve better business agility. On that note, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for watching. More exciting editions coming your way on CIO Academy Asia's #Unplugged. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on LinkedIn for the latest update. I'll see you soon.